is a Bramble Jam podcast.
Welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark, a Hallmark review podcast. I'm Megan, and I'm a longtime Hallmark fan.
I'm Wendy. I'm a former Hallmark hater.
We are back with The Way Home Mailbag episode number 3. Thank you for keeping your questions, comments, theories coming. As a reminder, you can always email us your thoughts on the way home, your questions, your theories. We love them. You can send them to girlsgonehallmark@gmail.com. That is the best way to do it, but you can DM us on Instagram or message us on Facebook or whatever is most convenient. These are in no particular order. The first one says, "Hi, I'm a new listener, but a longtime Hallmark fan. I'm not sure if this has already been brought up, but I can't recall hearing it. What if Casey Goodwin's first name is actually KC, K for Catherine, and C for Coyle? I don't know how to explain any of the rest of it, but I once knew a girl who went by KC, the initials, and it got me thinking."
I hadn't thought about that at all until I saw this email.
I hadn't either. And what's funny is I had a very good friend in high school who went by KC because those were her initials.
Oh,
like
interesting.
she went by Casey, like people called her Casey. Yeah. But she spelled it KC. So I think that's a super valid theory.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't stand for Catherine. I mean, it's kind of like the Lorelai Rory of it all, right? That's how we get away with using the same name.
Yeah. Interesting. But she could, Coyle. Oh, I hadn't thought about. I was like, well, why would she be like hiding Coyle as her last name? Because she presented herself as a Goodwin, right?
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
We don't know. I am very anxious to see Casey return to this series.
Me too. When is that happening? Is it happening?
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully. I mean, it's got to, right? It was left. They played too big of a role in season 2 to just be gone in season 3.
Yeah, but what episode are we nearing? 4, 5?
Yeah, 4 is this week.
So there's not much left, but that doesn't mean anything, I guess.
I do feel like the hits start coming kind of fast and furious in the second half of these seasons. They spend like the first half like building up all these theories.
Yeah.
So this next one is in response because Del was kind of coy with Jacob about the cause of Colton's death.
Yes.
And we're like, it was a car accident. We know that the circumstances were weird, but this is in response to that discussion.
Gotcha. So the email says, Elliot mentions back in the day that the police report of Colton's accident said there were 2 females running from the scene. I had forgotten all about that. I mean, obviously we know who was there.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any talk about a police report and 2 like mysterious females that Del would be aware of.
I had forgotten that too. I did start a rewatch of The Way Home yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and then you listen to tomorrow's episode, no, I did not time travel. We have recorded these episodes out of order. I only made it through 3 episodes. The show's so good. I'm enjoying it. And one of the things I was focusing really strongly on was like when Colton meets Alice for the first time.
Yeah. Does he look at her a certain way?
Yeah.
Is there any sort of like wink and a nod, like, I know where you're from? Nothing, right?
Nothing. No. But I do think you could look at it. Colton is just Colton, right? He's just this like kind, warm,
welcoming.
Great. Yeah. Yes. He's a cool dad. And so you could read it as he's just a dad who's nice to his kids' friends. Or I think you could read it as he's like, I've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
This next is an email titled Landry Family Almanac from Bobby, who says, "Hi, I love your The Way Home recaps. I was wondering if anyone has done screenshots of the pages in the Landry Family Almanac that show births and deaths. I think there are a bunch of people listed that we don't know about, and there may be info about Fern, etc." So we did a little Googling.
Did you?
And there are a ton of Reddit threads dedicated to this. We do not have the time here on this episode to dive into them, but I did do a little bit of digging. And for example, one points out there is a Colton Landry born in the 1800s. Now, it could be a family name. We don't know. But if you Google Landry Family Almanac Reddit, it will take you to these threads, and there are screenshots of them. There are people who have pulled out Excel spreadsheets listing the dates shown in them. So people are doing a deep dive into this. So much of it is speculation, and I am getting to the point that I'm having a hard time keeping like speculation and reality in line. So I'm trying not to go too far down that particular rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because there's so many what ifs.
Yeah, I hear you. I think last weekend we were together and we were talking, like, you guys, we were just hanging out doing something else, and we were talking about the way home.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I'm not trying to solve the mystery of this show. Like, I just enjoy it for what it is. I do love to hear the theories and think about these things, but like, truly, it's too much for my brain to figure out.
Yes. That's kind of why I'm enjoying the rewatch. I'm like, let's just watch it. Just see what happens.
I think what's going to happen is when it finally ends, it's all going to come together like that movie with Bruce Willis.
The Sixth Sense?
Yes, where it all makes sense at the end.
And you're like, what?
Yes, I'm hoping that.
And then you're going to have to rewatch with all of that in mind.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny because when I'm rewatching this, you know, Alice time travels, and I'm like, when does she bring, I can't remember when she brings Kat into the loop. I'm not there yet, but.
Oh, in season 1?
Yeah. I didn't, if you had asked me, I would have realized that Kat didn't know right away, obviously, but I had forgotten that there was a period of time where this was a big secret. And like the first time she time travels, it's because Kat thinks she's run away.
Yes. Yeah, I had just watched all those episodes too. And what struck me is that the character of Alice has grown up quite a bit since that first season.
Yeah, she was like such an angry teenager in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good.
We have a lengthy email from Paula. Let's break it down. Paragraph by paragraph, okay? She writes, great summary. I have no idea where this is going. The pond is a lot more well known than we would have guessed, unless the number of people with access to it has decreased. It's a reach. So is Paula saying here a lot more people knew about the pond than what we know, what we see? Like Kat and Alice aren't the only ones who know about the pond, obviously.
Yeah, and we know that now. The question that raises for me is, when Jacob disappeared, why was there no one who came out of the woodwork saying this is a possibility? Because it sounds
like
insane.
Colton.
Yeah, Colton especially.
Yeah, why wasn't he out in the water looking for him? I mean, I guess he could have been, and they just didn't.
We just don't know it.
We just don't know. Dell being so unaware of its existence, the pond, just doesn't make sense to me. I do like how they're adding so many layers. Here again, to me, it feels like Dell had to know. I think we're getting there. If you listen to our episode tonight after the new
episode airs.
The new episode airs. Whoa, too many words. I think we talk more about Dell knowing and the secrets Dell has.
Sure, but just to be clear, we're not telling you that we're going to find out that Dell knows tonight.
Oh, no. I'm not spoiling anything here.
No, but we do. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about it.
There's a lot of discussion about it. Right. Okay. Next up, she says, I'm again intrigued by the Thomas Coyle discussion. I don't think he could handle Kat's assertiveness and would never know she was a can girl. Let's talk about Susanna. That could be a great development. I could back Katzana. Oh, Kat and Susanna
as
together.
Their ship name.
I kind of love that. Why would they show us that image of her longing for Kat? Do you think there's going to be any like closed loop on that?
I feel like we've left Susanna so far in the past, like we're not even referencing her. Mm-hmm. I mean, never say never, but I think a lot of the cries for Susanna and Thomas are certainly
Kat
being...
and Thomas?
No, like bringing Susanna and Thomas back to the show.
Yes, okay.
But yes, Kat and Thomas being together, I think they're largely being ignored. And I wonder how much of that has to do with, there was certainly a large section of fans who didn't love the 1812 storyline. Mm-hmm. We were not among them.
No,
but
I loved it.
I don't know if we're going to bring back Susanna. I think it's going to be hard to completely leave all of that in the past. Like, we're going to have to revisit it in some way, even if we don't physically revisit the characters, simply because of Jacob's arc this season. Like, there's got to be something else going on with him.
Yeah, good point. The next part is in reference to our episode 2 Mailbag. She says, Alice has an advantage in time traveling because she is always the same age as the people she's running into. What teenager, especially a guy, wouldn't welcome a cute girl? Kat was a lot more effective in 1814. She's become the White Witch.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? Because I think we're talking about how, like, Kat's a bad time traveler.
Yeah.
And I think she's right. Alice does have an advantage because she's coming across people who are her age. So she assimilates easily, whereas Kat's like the creeper mom.
Totally.
She did do better in 1814.
Nailed it. She did do better. Yeah, because she was assimilating with people her own age. Yes, that's a really good point.
We got a lengthy email from Emily, who then sent a follow-up email. Let's start here. In my head, the pond can only send you backwards or return you to your original timeline. Yes, Elliot came up with that, but I'll still stick with it since otherwise it messes with what you can change and what is fixed. If you can move both directions, then nothing is ever fixed because you can change any time to remember a different past. I started to wonder if they found a loophole for Colton through sending him back as a baby. Maybe the whole timeline we see him living in is actually his past, including his death. So when I thought teen Colton was in 2025... I thought maybe he was born around the same time as Alice, and therefore that was returning to his original timeline. But maybe it's some other time. But that would allow for Ghost Colton to be actual Colton because he was still at some timeline that was prior / at his original one, depending on when he was dumped backwards.
Please make me a murder board because I don't understand any of that.
There are a lot of people... There's a lot of speculation about what Colton's original timeline is.
Yeah, okay.
She goes on to say, so then I started wondering more about who was watching Jacob at the press conference. Maybe that's Colton from his actual timeline. If he returned to 2025 at some point, would he have been held up in some place that looked kind of old? The TV and VCR seemed to be early 2000s. Another possibility that I don't recall was Lingermore was kind of dated looking. Did it get holed up and sort of frozen in time after the party in the early 2000s? If so, this seems like that scene might be what it looks like. So then she watches episode 3 and comes back and says, I still think I'm speculating the baby is Colton and he lives most of his life in the past. The grandmother scenes made it a little harder to explain since it did seem that the genealogy was well known without gaps. Still, if a family lived in a world of time travel, maybe there's flexibility with bringing random babies into the family as your own and in time becoming your son. I mean, look, it happened with Jacob, right?
Right.
So in that last scene in season 2, we find out the boy is Colton and she tells him the pond will bring him where he needs to go. And he says, but why, Grandma? I want to try. And she says it's not his time yet. So they're chatting about time travel and maybe she knows more about where he might go. She says, also thinking about it, if his age is 9-ish, could that be 1965 and there's more to the rhyme Grandma Fern was singing than just might be shut down? Did she start the poem 55 first arrived? The number seemed blurred, so I listened a few times, but I thought maybe. If so, that wouldn't that be around when baby Colton would show up? Or could they all have, and the parents went back and forth until one time when Colton's dad / Fern's son disappeared? I could very well just be trying to find evidence to bolster my theory, but that makes it fun, she says.
Colton's dad disappeared? When have we established that? I know that it was, I recall think Fern talking about like people coming and going.
I thought it was alluded to that the dad, like with the daughter-in-law being so strong because the dad was gone. But again, that Fern scene is still real fuzzy for me.
It is. And I have seen a lot of people try to translate what she has said, and it hasn't been consistent. So,
well, and it's riddles, right? So even if it's all in your interpretation, like you could make it believe any number, make it say any number of things, I think.
The next reply comes from our YouTube channel. Yes, you guys, we are on YouTube as well. This person says, yes to answer one of your questions. The first time Kat time travels, she comes across her teen self with Alice on the field. And Kat also watches herself on the first date with Brady. So we were wondering, like, do you come across yourself in time travel and how that could be
does that
problematic.
cause like a rip in the space-time continuum?
Right.
And apparently it does not.
Remember if anybody had. Well, thank you. Now we know. Kat, I do remember now. I don't remember Kat seeing her young self and Alice together, but I do remember her watching her date with Brady.
You know, and I want to say that now that I'm doing the rewatch, we've given Dell a hard time for not remembering all of these people.
We can't remember.
Well, we can't remember, but also Alice is named after Kat's childhood friend, Alice, who is Alice, and Kat doesn't even remember her.
Yeah.
Even if you go back to the early seasons, she even finds the Polaroid that Jacob takes on the first meeting, and Alice is kind of blurry. But even then, it's not like, oh, I remember this moment when I met this girl.
Yeah.
And Elliot does say like memories are mercurial. So I think we're leaning hard on that idea that memories are mercurial, and she talks about Alice being more of an energy than a person. And so I think that we have to kind of lean into that a little bit with some of this time travel and who remembers what from people they know in the past.
Interesting. Okay.
I know we got a message somewhere about maybe the baby being Susanna's baby with Cyrus Goodwin.
Oh, interesting.
But I can't find it. It didn't come in an email. It may have come in an Instagram DM. I'm sorry. And then their point was like maybe that was why Susanna was so short with Kat when she came back. Like she was feeling shamed, and she had used herself as a distraction to Cyrus in the wake of Jacob and Thomas and the White Witch. And that was a baby that we saw.
Interesting.
So I apologize. I cannot give you credit for that. That thought did stick with me. I don't remember where it came from.
Wait a minute.
Yes?
Maybe you just said that, but could that baby be Jacob?
Sure. Why not? It'd be weird, though, because Jacob and Susanna were then engaged.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
But they were never engaged out of, like, love. They were engaged out of, like, companionship, almost as, like, a distraction.
Yeah, that would be weird to explain that away. But I was like, what if Jacob is the son of Susanna and Cyrus, and then that's messy.
Very messy. Again, lots of speculation. Listener Michelle sent us her notes. She did a deep dive into Alice in Wonderland, which was written in 1865. And the dedication says, a childhood book for a childhood friend. Promise to remember being a kid when you read it. Her notes say, did they come from the 1800s? Colton was a little boy in the 1800s. Evelyn could have been a child of Cyrus Goodwin, and they grew up together and jumped in the pond together. She says Colton appeared to be upset that the pond wouldn't take him when Alice sees him. Again, was he trying to go back and stop something from happening / Rick's death? He does confirm that that's what he was trying to do, apparently, obviously unsuccessfully. Her question says, could it be Colton and Alice jumping in with the baby in the basket? And she also points out the Queen of Cups and Tarot play a major role. The Cups is the suit of emotion, mother, caregiver, intuitive woman, and psychic. She is there to help.
Interesting.
And we do see a promo image from this week's episode of Alice and Evelyn with their tarot cards.
Yes.
So, little hints everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that what Colton says? There's messages everywhere. You just have to look for them.
Oh my goodness. Keep your emails, thoughts, theories, questions coming. We'll be back tonight at 10:01 p.m. Pacific time.
10:01. I love it.
That is the official unembargoed time with our thoughts on tonight's brand new episode of The Way Home. Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, we love your 5-star ratings and reviews. You can leave them in the Apple Podcast app. You can also rate us and leave comments in Spotify. We'll see you tonight. Bye.
Bye.
All right, friends, before we go, just a quick heads up. You're about to hear some ads. These little gems help us keep the show running and the Hallmark love flowing. So do with that info what you will. Grab a snack, hit the skip button, or maybe, just maybe, listen in and discover your new favorite product. Bye.